In this video, I'm going to go through exactly why it is that I got into real estate, how that came about. I'm going to walk you through in detail, I almost said excruciating detail, but just detail, exactly how much I paid for those houses, what they might be worth today, and what they are costing me on an ongoing basis. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, my name's Austin. I wish that I had told myself these things. Well, I wish that I could hear myself tell myself these things 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe even longer ago. Real estate has turned out to be the biggest grower of my net worth. It has far and beyond outperformed my stock holdings. It has outperformed my crypto holdings. Real estate has ensured that I will one day retire, and probably not soon, but one day I will retire, and it will probably be well before I turn 65. So, how did I get into real estate? I was working in human resources for a company that I really liked, coworkers that I really liked. I was making $36,000 a year back in 2018. This was my first job out of college, and I realized pretty soon that I did not want to be working every day for the rest of my life like my grandfather did. He was a dentist and orthodontist, and then a copywriter. He worked until about 6 months before he passed away at 95. And he practiced dentistry and orthodontia until his mid-80s. Not because he wanted to, but because, well, he had to, financially. I did not want to be like that. I looked at my parents even, and I did not want to be working by the time I was their age. In fact, I was really worried that if their health deteriorated sooner than later, I'd end up having to help them in retirement. So I had a pretty serious discussion with them, asking them, what's your plan for retirement? And they, at long last, opened up to me about their entire strategy, and it turns out that most of it, if not all of it, was due to their real estate holdings. They said, remember how we always have you come over and help rake the leaves and mow the lawns at our places and fix up things with your father and me, paint and deal with little tenant issues? And I said, yeah. They said, well, that's our plan. We are going to rent out our properties until the day we die, and then, God willing, and the creek don't rise, you will inherit those along with your siblings. And I said, there's no way those things are making that much money. Kind of embarrassing for me that I was 28 years old and didn't understand how real estate worked. But better late than never. They clued me in, and I realized, holy cow, between principal pay down, between price appreciation, between cash flow, all these things really do enable people to retire. I don't know why I thought that they just own real estate as kind of a hobby, but long story short, I decided I wanted to own some real estate. And I wanted to own not just any real estate, I wanted to own a duplex. That had kind of been hyped up in my mind as this magical thing that a house can make you a decent amount of rent, but a duplex, that's really where the magic is at. And so I looked, and on my salary of $36,000 a year, I could not afford a duplex at the time. Duplexes were just out of reach. That was really frustrating and really disappointing and really depressing. And so I waited, and the next year, I was earning $42,000 a year at the same job. And unfortunately, real estate prices had appreciated just enough to make it so that owning a duplex was still out of reach. And so I thought to myself, all right, I'm not going to keep doing this dance. I'm either going to buy a piece of real estate now, which I didn't want to do. I didn't want to buy just anything. I wanted to buy a duplex. Or I'm going to increase my income such that I can buy a duplex. And I knew I just couldn't go into another HR job and earn enough to buy a duplex. So I realized I would need to go back to school, increase my income that way, and then hopefully within the next few years I would be able to afford a duplex. So, obsessive compulsive disorder as it sounds, and it probably was, that was what I was hoping for, that was what I was praying for, was that I could A, get into a grad school, B, change careers, because I knew it would be a long time before I made enough money in HR to make enough to afford a duplex. And so that's what I did. I got into grad school, got an MBA, and graduated into the pandemic. Luckily, I was able to get a job working for the state, not making a lot, but making $25 an hour, $52,000 a year. And unfortunately, real estate had gone crazy, and I was still unable to buy a stinking duplex. Well, you can imagine my disappointment, knowing that I'd gone to school, gotten a pay raise, all just so that I could do something that I could no longer do. But I looked around. I found a deal off market that I really wanted to buy. It was, well, they weren't asking anything. They said, you make the offer. And I said, all right, I can do $400,000. So I put in the offer at $400,000 for a duplex. It was going to be one of my very own. But they sat on the offer. They didn't respond to it. And I knew, the offer was too low. But $400,000 was the tippy top of what I could afford. That was me maxing out my debt to income ratio. My loan officer said, yeah, you can't do more than that. So I went to a family member and I said, hey, I can't get this duplex. I just can't afford it. I don't know what your income is, but if you want, I'm 90% sure that if we put in an offer for you to get this place at $445, that's probably the sweet spot, what they're looking for. And so that's what we did. We basically took my offer, just changed out the names, changed out the numbers, and voila, acceptance. That was really exciting to go through with my family member. The house appraised for about $460, I think, and they got going. Meanwhile, I was still left without a duplex, and with increasing prices, my prospects were slim. So I started putting in offers on single-family homes, on townhomes, on condos. Unfortunately, I got outbid by 10-20%, even though I was asking, I was offering above asking. That was also a little bit of a slap to the old confidence. So I finally went and saw a house that had been on the market for a long time, which was at the time 14 days. So I had to look at it, walk through it with my family, and, well, before I go through all the details of what I bought it for, I want to show you the pictures so that you can see and think to yourselves, what would you have paid for this place? Just a few details. This is a 3 technically, bedroom, 2 bathroom house. You can see that's the view. The upstairs living room, kitchen, part of the kitchen. This is the rest of it. Upstairs, one of the upstairs bedrooms. Man, they made these pictures look so nice. That paint chip there. That whole thing is now completely gone. Downstairs living area. This is a 1,572 square foot house. They really brightened up these pictures. that light is way off center. Carpet is disgusting. This room, let's just say all these boards are gone, the carpet is gone, and it looks a lot different. In fact, it's the room I'm sitting in now. Yeah, yikes. Downstairs bathroom, backyard. Yeah, little carport area. And I don't know why, but more backyard. So, as you can tell, it was a little bit beat up, but I just wanted a house at that point. I was so sick of getting outbid by everyone. I was so sick of not having the appreciation of a few years to go on. I thought to myself, I should have just bought a house back in 2018. What was I thinking? I'll just go for this one. So that is what I did, and here's some of the details. I had great credit. I think a score of about 160, or not 160, 760. I went for a conventional loan. The house price, here's what they were asking. They were asking $360. I walked through it and knew immediately I was not willing to pay more than $335. They countered at $345, and I accepted. Down payment wise, I put down 5%, which was the least I could put down on a conventional mortgage. So $17,000 for the down payment. Interest rate that I got locked in at was 2.875, which was insanely good. Oh, what I wouldn't give for that nowadays. HOA fee, there was none. Monthly insurance was around $70 a month. Annual taxes was around $3,000. Utilities, we're not going to go and do those. Repairs, we'll go without those for now, just so you can get a baseline look at what I was looking at. Same with monthly improvements. So, all in all, I was going to be paying about $600 in principal every month, about $800 in interest, so combined $1,360 between principal and interest. And then for the rest of it, mortgage insurance of $82, so total expenses were $1,762. That was being pulled from my escrow every month, mortgage and escrow payments. So I knew, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need to be able to rent it out for at least that much if I move out right away, which I was planning on living in it for a year, which is the agreement that I made. That's the only reason I was able to put down less than 20%. So I knew if I was going to be living in it, I'd have to rent out the rest of the house such that I'd be okay with my portion of it. So I did. I rented out the rest of the house, and my portion every month ended up just being about $450. So I knew that if I replaced myself in the house, I'd be able to make up and at least get back my mortgage payments that I was putting into it. To say nothing, of course, of repairs and improvements. So, that was that house. Next, I lived in it for about, again, a year, got married. My wife, for some reason, didn't want to live in that house. So, and in fact, I didn't either because I knew we could live somewhere less expensive. So we moved in somewhere for about $750 a month. Basically a one bedroom, one bath place. And then we moved closer to work for about $1,300 a month. So, about 2 years after buying this house, we were thinking to ourselves, do we still want real estate? The answer was yes. We were renting out this one for about $19.60 a month, so a little bit of profit. And we decided to look around. Interest rates had gone up a lot, unfortunately, and everything that we were looking at, we would be underwater if we, once we turned around and rented it out. Fortunately for us, there was a house that I kept an eye on, and I'll show that one to you next. This is the one. I saw it. I saw that they were asking $650 for it, and that it was renting out. It was a duplex, up and down duplex, $650, renting out for about $2,300 a month for both units, $2,300. And I knew, okay, well, there's a lot of room for that to increase, for us to move in and increase the rents by a lot. But of course they knew that, so that's why they'd gone with $650, because $2,300 of rent for a $650,000 property is garbage. So I just kept an eye on the listing, saw that they decreased their asking price down to $620, which I knew was still a lot. And then after a few more months, they decreased it down to $590. And that's when I knew, okay, I'm not going to do this for $590. In fact, there's a fat chance we probably won't be able to afford it. Even at $590, our debt to income was horrible. But what if I could get it for $550? So, getting in touch with my loan officer, realized that $550, $570 might be the max between me and my wife. So I made an offer for $550, thinking they'd probably counter at $570. Turns out they did. And we countered their counter and said, look, we don't want this place if it's going to be if we're going to do it at $570, we're going to need a new roof. You can't see the roof in this strategically because the roof was horrible. We said, we're going to need a new roof. We're going to need additional money for other repairs. We're going to need all the vents cleaned out. We're going to need a couple thousand for a water heater. And so that is, we thought there's no way they're going to go for it. That's going to be tens of thousands of dollars out of their pocket. Let's see how badly they want to get rid of the place. And we weren't desperate for the place because we knew even if we did get this house, we'd have to live in it for a year. We'd be able to rent out the other half. But we also knew that the margins would be very slim. Because of interest rates, we would be paying a lot. And it was a 100-year-old house, so we didn't want to necessarily do that either, unless it was completely favorable to us. And the last thing I wanted to worry about was a roof leak. And then they went for it, which was shocking to us. It was frankly a miracle that they went for it, a miracle that we got the loan. We weren't supposed to get that, but there was 10 things that went completely wrong that somehow we were like, all right, well, I guess we just weren't meant to get it. But then, oh wait, looks like we got it to work out after all. So here's the house. Spoiler alert, I already told you guys we bought it for $570,000. I mean, these pictures look phenomenal. Yeah. But to their credit, it did have good bones, solid foundation, good roof, good plumbing, good electrical. Recently redone both bathrooms. And yeah, that wall, that whole room is not that white. It is now because we painted it, but that is more gray. I don't know how they got the pictures to look so good. Yeah, and about 9 parking spots as well. So let's go and run through the numbers. Numbers wise, for this house we ended up going FHA. We lived in the upstairs, rented out the downstairs, which at the time was going for $11.35 a month. House price $570. Down payment, we went with FHA. We only had to put down 3.5%, or about $20,000. Interest rate was not 2.875%. It was 5.75%. And even then we were lucky to get that because interest rates had risen above 6, dipped down below and into 5.75, and then right after we locked in, interest rates just went parabolic again. So very lucky to get 5.75. No FHA HOA fee. Monthly insurance was about $100 a month. Annual taxes were, call it around $3,000 a month. So this is not looking very good, is it? Interest of $26.66. Remember that the first property that I bought was only interest of $700 a month, or $800, somewhere around there. So $26.66. That's just a lot. Property taxes, home mortgage, all of that adds up to around $39.43. And we knew that, well, we were fairly confident that we could, in a year, turn around and rent out the place for around $4,000 a month. Fairly confident. And one of the ways we knew that was because the city zoned houses like that, so every unit can only house 3 unrelated individuals. So in this case, since it's a duplex, that's 6 individuals. But we knew that the rents were A, very low, and B, this house was zoned, and I verified this by calling and confirming with the city, this house was zoned for 10 individuals. So very unusual. So we knew that we could A, increase the rents per person, and B, increase the amount of people in the house. And we thought, if we do that right, we can hit just about $4,000 a month, which would help us break even, at least before repairs and improvements. So we moved in for a year and ended up paying, we raised the rents, first of all, got new renters in there, increased the tenancy from 3 individuals to 5 individuals downstairs, and got rents of around $900. Oops, I didn't want to do that there. Rents of around $1,900, meaning that what was left for us was around $2,000. So that's essentially what we paid for our 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, or portion of the house, and then we split all the utilities with the tenants downstairs, so that upstairs was paying half, downstairs was paying half. Called it good. So we moved out. We fixed a lot of things up before we did. We lived in it for a year, and then, but luckily a lot of it was just cosmetic. Ended up moving out, and lo and behold, I don't know how we got so lucky. We had 70 people apply, and we picked a group of 9 individuals to rent out the space for a combined total of $43.20, leaving us with a bit of a net gain. How lucky is that? Seriously. Now, a lot of it I give credit to my wife, who helped the place look a lot more homely. She's a great interior decorator. It's not what she does for for work, but it's what she does for fun. And I'll show you pictures sometime of what it looks like now, but it looks phenomenal. And yeah, we are technically profiting $377 a month. However, we have had some minor issues come up with HVAC and plumbing that have caused us to dip into that a little bit. And frankly, it is a 100-year-old house, so we're just earmarking any profit we get and then some for repairs and improvements we're going to have to make. But we know that real estate is a long-term game. We know that we're going to increase the rents by at least 3.5% this year, meaning that the rents are going to be, instead of $51,840, they're going to go up by almost $2,000 for the year, and that's an additional almost $200 on top of this $377. So we also know that using this logic, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 7 years out, are we really going to be spending $10,000 in repairs? I don't think so. So we're going to be able to pocket some of that. And chances are we might even cash in a little sooner because, well, who knows? We might keep it for 30 years. We might not. There's going to come a time where the return on equity is less than the return that we could possibly get in the stock market, or equal. And if that's the case, are we going to want to spend our time and efforts managing and fixing up a place that we could just sell and put that money into the stock market and get similar yields? Yeah, that's a question that we're going to have to evaluate every so often. And I have a spreadsheet for that. And in the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to get really juicy to potentially sell a place. So, long story short, that's where we are with real estate now. Let's see, we have 2 properties. We are back to living in the first property and fixing up the upstairs. I fixed up the downstairs for the year that I lived here. We are fixing up the upstairs in the coming months, and we're excited for that. We'll show you progress pictures if you want. But really, real estate is a very long-term play, and I say that because you can't go into it with a mindset of fix and flip, because interest rates can go up in that time period, and that can affect housing prices, and maybe your flip goes down in value. Meanwhile, you've invested a lot of money that you, on short-term credit, no less. That just seems like a very risky thing for me to do. Plus, you have a lot of costs associated with buying and selling. So why would you want to turn over that frequently? Real estate, for me, is just insurance. It's security. Because I have these houses, I know that I will not have to work a day longer than 40 years if I do nothing other than keep these places maintained, keep them rented, keep the mortgage paying itself down. Even 30 years, I'll be just fine. My family will be just fine. We can retire on what we have now. That is the peace that, frankly, I didn't have when I was working a job and putting 10% into a 401k. The stock market's going to do what it's going to do. But everyone's always going to need housing. And as soon as I understood that, that's when I realized, why not spend a couple of years sacrificing my money, sacrificing my time, my precious time after work, where I should be relaxing or hanging out with friends. And don't get me wrong, I did a fair amount of that as well, but spending Saturdays making runs to the dump or painting a room. And so far I can say that it's been worth it. I can't tell you what my net worth might be right now. I could give an approximation, but I would just feel dumb. But I can tell you significantly, with a good amount of confidence, that my net worth has increased by a lot due to real estate. I'm not in an, oh, I've made it phase. I'm not one of those YouTubers that's got 26 properties or 1,000 properties that they're paying someone else to manage. I'm a person that is maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of where you might be. And ahead, by ahead, I mean a few steps further down the road, maybe where you see yourself being in a year or 2, and you can speak from experience and also from recency. I know both the things I did well, the mistakes I made, the things I would do differently. And I intend on being transparent with those things in the coming days and months, because I don't think that I'm going through all these experiences just for myself. There's a lot of other people out there like me, like I was, and I hope that you can learn from my mistakes and from my successes. And I haven't quote unquote made it, but I can tell you I don't stay up at night when I should be sleeping wondering how I'm going to retire anymore. That was something that I did a lot until the day I closed on my duplex. Somehow I always knew that a duplex would give me peace of mind. And sure enough, it has. I want that for you.